Call the meeting for are we now officially the investment committee as well?
No, that's been sent to committee on committees.
So we're purchasing and financial management committee. It's January 22nd, 2024, 5 p.m. Calling this meeting to order. Mr. Brown, Commissioner Brown, would you mind starting us with an invocation?
Lord, we are always mindful of the wisdom that comes from above. Help us to always understand that we need that wisdom, we covet it. Help us as we discern the business of this county. Help us as we discern the welfare of this county. Lord, we also make mention of the fact that we are trying to do things selflessly, without any profit, without any motive of interest on our parts. Help us to understand that we should be of a nature that is godly and that is right in your sight. Help us to always be those examples that we should be before other people. We ask that in your Son's blessed name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
We want to take a minute to review today's agenda.
On vacation.
Something email.
Motion, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Recognition of the public, anybody like to speak? All right.
Hiding back there, man.
Everybody take a minute to look at the minutes from last meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'll start with a quick update or a quick couple of topics here. So we typically meet, or we've been scheduled to meet on the third Monday, but because of holidays during certain months, that's been getting pushed back to the fourth Monday, which we know we have a conflict with one of our committee members. So I don't know what the exact solution to this would be, but my thought is if whenever we have a holiday month, we either push it up to the second or find another date besides the fourth. So I don't know what that looks like, but does anybody have conflicts on the second Mondays that we could pull it forward?
Well,
But
yeah, that's when you got some pretty heavy duty.
Budget, legislative.
Meeting,
Okay.
legislative,
Could we do
budget, and those go long.
a third Tuesday or something?
Tuesday, yeah.
That's your
I
board,
think-
that's.
Oh, yeah, that's
right?
Board of Education.
Well, it would, but I think your bigger problems, I know a lot of times, I don't know how I don't know how y'all are doing it, but I know we would, you liked having a committee before the commission meeting in case you had something. I mean, David, remember that if you had something emergency come up that was financially oriented, it gave you the ability to address it. That might be going on.
And the problem is I'm on Resource Authority, and that's when theirs is.
Is it the fourth Monday?
This is the fourth Monday. It's only the fourth Monday that it's a problem. When we
how many-
push into the fourth.
There's two holidays.
2 holidays.
Would the Friday before the commission meeting serve that same purpose then?
That'd work.
Yeah, we could do that.
Could they skip it till the holiday unless there's something urgent?
That
Or
would
we
be a
just
good
don't-
idea.
Just don't meet those months.
Have 10,
I mean-
have 10 meetings. 10
That's more
scheduled.
than we used to have.
What time, David, did you say?
I have 10 scheduled. I think it's, there's two, I think Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday and what's the other?
President's Day.
President's Day.
President's Day.
So is that, would that be January and?
January.
What's
February.
magic
January,
about
February.
Fridays? Could we
Okay.
consider Thursdays?
Well, what we were considering is just skipping the holiday month and
Okay.
having a double.
So not meeting
Agenda.
in January and February going forward.
If something's urgent, you want to move it, just skip it, and then if something's urgent, move it to that Thursday preceding.
Okay.
So it's only two
5:30,
2 months.
Well, at the end of the year, we have the Thanksgiving and we're all over the place with the holidays.
I think it'd just be January, February for the holidays,
Yeah,
right?
but those were, yeah, because they're not Mondays.
Yeah.
You can have Thursdays an alternative if you need one that month at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Would that work?
November would be the only
So I think there's a,
weird.
I don't know if this needs to be a motion, but basically, if there is a Monday conflict, cancel it that month. If something's urgent, we'd hold it the Thursday before.
I'll make that motion.
No. Seconded.
All right.
What times? It's 5.
Does 5 still work?
Yeah. All I ask is to simply send out an email, you know.
Yeah, we'll send out.
When those things happen.
So that's agenda.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Second thing I have, it's not on here, but there are
When's that
two.
going into effect? Probably immediately, so this coming up. February.
So, which Monday is it again?
One's for the third Monday in January, February.
So basically next year, January, February would be non-existent unless we needed them, and otherwise they'd be the Thursday before. Dr. Langford suggesting having the ability.
If you don't do it before the commission, you back yourself up a month.
Because of the holidays, it gets moved before from those 2 months. January, February, the buildings are closed, there's holidays.
Next thing I have, it's not on here, but we do have 2 topics from financial management coming up for vote tonight. I'm planning on sticking around, but I'm not sure if we need a commissioner to read them or bring them up on the floor, so Commissioner Brown or Commissioner Boyd, I don't know. You guys would be better suited to speak to those, or if you want me to get up and grab the podium and talk to them.
I believe I'd like to see you up there, Colin, as our chairman, unless you have a other commitment.
I mean, I don't.
It's a lot of fun. Come on over.
It's very high on the agenda.
All right, so I will make sure to stay here to the very end to talk to the last 2 topics.
Is there a possibility to ask the,
The chairman to move it to
Chairman,
the
move it
top.
from that, and to see if in the future if it could be moved as one of the first committees?
I believe that's a great idea.
I appreciate that.
I think I got a little pull. I'll work on that.
All right, so I'll plan on presenting that then, I think I'll need that. Cool. And then just the last thing I want to say is, again, thanks for everybody's time on this committee. You know, the goal of this obviously is to help implement the financial acts and make sure that we're fully in compliance with the law and with the policy. I think the work we're doing here may feel slow and a bit arduous, but I think we are making consistent progress, and I want to keep that progress through 2024 and continue that on. So again, thanks everybody for the work on here, and I want us to have a very, very productive 2024. I feel like we're finally getting a bit of momentum here and want to keep it going. So thank you.
So Colin, I got a question, it's not on the agenda, maybe Mr. Sittler's already answered it. When do we fold the investment committee into this committee?
I believe it's currently with the the committee on committees.
They're going to be, okay, we'll run through that
It
committee.
needs to be removed from the heading for now, so it's
Okay.
settled.
Yeah, I think there was some question on if it's all the same members or not, or if
Sorry.
it's a smaller group.
The act just says you guys want to develop policies, it doesn't specifically say you want to do committee. And then that's why probably more prudent pointed under the actual statute, because the statute actually has basically hold harmless if you're doing what you're supposed to. bad investment, fall statutes are not responsible. So you probably want that protection too.
I would want it.
Or at least make sure it's clear that you got it. So you have to do it.
Is that currently on their slate of things to talk about?
We emailed it to Jeremy, he's the chairman, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
he emailed it to him.
Yeah, Jeremy had called me and said they're working on it, so we don't have an update yet. Guess no report from the mayor today. Any report from the law director?
I have nothing, but we'll entertain any questions.
Trustee? Todd, would you like to review the trustee packet? I don't know how much has changed since last month.
Well, I see what I want to see, in terms of the,
I think is everything added.
no, it's all good.
Really good ratings, man.
I'll take that.
That's why,
It's
under
a
my
little
report, I
change.
got some discussions under my report. Because of it.
So what is, I mean, just go forward, are we, I mean, trustee report, who is technically on the hook to do that every meeting? Is that Cindy typically, or is that just the first couple meetings we've met, or maybe you, David, or how does that work?
She's historically just sent down the report with the listed investments is what's happened since probably, I've been here since '09. Because there's not really been a lot of investment committee action, but you may want to send a request to ask the trustee to be here when you're actually looking at investments, but, because she would be the actual trustee.
Well, it's just me. I mean, usually the mayor's here, the law director's here, right? And we're gonna look at the trustee report. I would assume that the trustee would be here to present it. So I'm not trying to make it super complicated, other than to say, I think that should be standard process.
You want me to send a request from the committee to see if she'll be here?
Yeah, is she a committee member?
No.
So yeah, we have to request her.
I appreciate that, thanks.
Well, I feel that, you know, if we are going to become the investment committee too, that her input would definitely be needed.
Actually, when Committee on Committees addresses the need to address the investment committee, I believe she needs a seat on the table.
Yeah.
That would make sense. I don't know how they're gonna, they just need to address that, however they want to do it. That's their work, but it might
They
be.
can appoint anybody to the investment committee.
Well,
So
either
they can
she
appoint
said,
the trustee.
the trustee would be a permanent member of the committee, or be an invited guest every meeting. I think that committee needs to be represented by the trustee. I mean, that's where all the money's at, right? That's what we're trying to protect. So, I think the person that's responsible for that countywide should be the one there. And let us ask the questions. It's like we would any other person that's responsible for any particular, we'd ask you as a law director if we had questions. I mean, no different.
While
You
we're
wanna send that
on,
on to Mr., you might want to send that as a recommendation to committee on committees if they want the trustee.
so while we're on the investment piece,
On the investment, on the investment side of this committee.
No, but I'm saying if
Okay.
they're one committee on committees to include the trustee as a member of the investment committee, they might want to vote to send that recommendation to the committee on committees.
fine, and maybe we can ask Cindy how she feels about it. I just, maybe she wants to be there.
I know she's been here for quite a few now.
Yeah.
It's been very helpful. in my
My,
opinion.
my,
I do too.
my question would be Mr. Sidler's question. My question is would it be good to have her since should she be a voting member of the committee, or just someone that does a report like the law director, or, you know? 'Cause my concern there is, you know, you
She's
got somebody-
voting on her
Yeah,
own.
You got somebody that's voting on the same investments.
Yes.
Supervisor. That'd be a concern I would have.
Or she could even be an ex officio member
That's-
if that's what you wanted to do. There's several different ways to do that, but the most important thing is her being here to answer questions.
Yeah, exactly.
So I get that. I mean, I'm not here because this is fun and exciting, but.
It would almost just be almost like a report of the trustee.
Because that's what I was checking while you were talking, because John is, or the mayor is also on here. I don't know what his status is as a member, but I guess that would be my question to you. Are you wanting me to have committee on committees make a recommendation that she appear, that she be a member, a voting member, ex officio? I guess that's what I need to know what y'all are looking
Well,
for.
I would not be in favor of her being a voting member from a control perspective. I don't think she should be voting on
Okay.
policies that she is responsible to implement.
I think that makes sense.
But certainly her presence here would be helpful. And I think it's just good optics for the trustee to be part of the investment meeting, so.
I'll make sure it gets on their agenda.
And Dr. Langford, you have the biggest piece of the pie. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, none of us have really much control. It's the trustee's call, so.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I think we're still in the boat where we used to get like 0.18% interest on any investment, so.
Now we're like 5%.
Now getting 5%, that's a.
It's material.
That's,
Yeah.
it's definitely worth thinking about more now.
During COVID, we got 0.1%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When your discussion was 0.1 versus 0.13.
But it's not as much as to me, it is about the return on investments. To me, it's the control around how we move our money and what authorities and how we actually empower banks with our money. To me, that's one of the biggest parts of that. Now that we've got the 5%, as Dr. Langford said, now it's material. I mean, but still, a functioning investment committee would be there to look at how the monies are being handled and moved and situated in banks and different financial institutions. So it just kind of works together now with a better return on the money, but there's still a need to have the controls. So I told you, Terry, I'd get into the controls, didn't
Moving on to report of the finance director.
Since we're talking about interest, it brings up another interesting thing that's going on right now. And I'm gonna talk about arbitrage rebates, and I don't know how far I need to go back into arbitrage. Arbitrage is basically the difference between investments if you're investing tax exempt versus non-tax exempt investments. When the county issues bonds, by and large, and they've had none otherwise since I've been here, when we issue our investments, the earnings are tax exempt to the investor, which means we get a much lower yield. On average, say 22% because of the average tax. What that means is over the life of the bonds, unless we meet certain spend downs, which are very tight and we've never met them for our size, that means that the bonds cannot earn, your investments cannot earn more on average for those bond proceeds or your debt service than the actual interest on the average interest on the bonds. Any difference has to be rebated to the IRS, and it has to be done, you have to calculate at least every 5 years, and you have to rebate it 60 days after that. So we're coming up on the 19. To give you a little history, the last bond that we've had to rebate was back when I first came in 07 for about $250,000, a small bond. And we just did a midterm, basically halfway through the 5-year mark on the 21 bonds. There was no arbitrage due, or we didn't think so at the time, but it wasn't going to be the 5-year mark. The 15, we've done the 5-year mark, and there was none due. The 19 is what we're doing right now. Because the yields are creeping up really quickly, there's a concern that we probably will potentially owe some rebated money to the IRS on interest. What we have been doing for several years is we put interest back in the debt service fund. So we put it as, I think it's non-restricted, some kind of account we put under any of the interest earned on these bonds, which should be more than enough to cover that. One thing that does play against us, and I talked to the rebate specialist, and it's by and large in Tennessee, if your debt service fund is what's called a qualified debt service fund, that it doesn't come into play. Ours is a non-qualified. The reason being is a qualified debt service fund at its lowest point can only have 1/12, the greater of 1/12 of your interest and principal from the prior year or the earnings, which would be interest earnings. Which the interest earnings on the debt service fund itself is probably what we're talking about per year, $300,000. So if you're talking 300,000 of the 1/12, you're talking about a $3 million limit. We carry about $20 million in there. It would be difficult for the county to maintain $3 million in slow point for a couple of reasons. The debt service fund has interest earnings in there, adequate facilities, and sales tax, which are highly volatile with the economy. In addition, if there is arbitrage rebates due, the money comes from debt service, which could be several $millions. So that's the reason we have a non-qualified debt service fund. Talking to them in several other states, they do have qualified debt service funds, but basically what they're doing is they levy all the taxes and stuff in another fund and then transfer the payments over. In Tennessee, we directly levy in the debt service fund and maintain the debt service fund. So I've looked at it. I don't think we can reasonably maintain a qualified fund. But right now, there is some concern that we're going to have to pay back arbitrage, but I will bring it up at the March meeting and budget in February if we need to do a budget amendment.
And that's because we borrowed it like 1.8, and now the interest rate's 5.
So the difference we will have to rebate. But the thing is, down at the beginning and at COVID, the rates were lower, so it's the average yield over the whole curve, so it's hard to tell right now till we get toward that fifth year. I think it's gonna be close, either direction, but it could be far either direction.
Did you say we have to remit it 60 days or 90 days?
60.
So do we have time? I mean, it's coming in and you're saying March. We got all right with the timing?
We, at the end of January, the bond was issued January 31st, 2019. So the ending period for that will be January 31st of this year. We have 60 days to rebate. We will have all the information at the end of this week. Because we had to go back and calculate some yields on debt service, and it took a little bit of time. Because in the past, they haven't been an issue because the rates have been so low. We're gonna have them by the end of January. They'll have it back to February. We'll bring it to them. Discuss it probably in budget February, the possibility, bring it to them in March if there is one, and rebate it during the month of March to write them a check. But there is the money in the debt service fund. It could be as low as a negative arbitrage to, I don't know, it's hard to say right now because the rates have changed so significantly over time.
Can you give all of the commissioners just a basic lowdown on what it is? Because everybody feels like everything comes at them really quickly and everything's always on fire, and we're gonna bring them another thing and say you have to get this done real quick.
Well, we've been doing these studies and putting the money back for years. The reason it
Yeah,
hasn't,
and I think
the
everything's
reason it
great. I
hasn't
just want them
came-
to know it's coming.
the reason it hasn't came up before now, we don't know the amount of even ones due. We've been putting back money in the debt service, and I think last year in budget, I did bring, because we did a budget amendment to do the arbitrage rebate studies on the 19, the 20, and the 21 bonds. 21, we owe nothing. The 15 I did a couple years back. So we do these internally regularly. Rarely, since 2007, we ever had to rebate one. It's the last time's why. But we will bring it up in February to budget of the possibility. That way it does meet the rule for 2 readings. Basically, on arbitrage, you've only got one of 2 choices. One, invest in lower yield investments, or 2, rebate it to the IRS. Investing in lower yield investments would be foolish because you're going to undershoot the mark. To get the maximum amount of cash for the county, you're going to get as much as you can, and if you have to rebate, you just rebate it. But the thing is, you do have to rebate it, because if you don't, willfully failing to rebate those bonds have one of 2 punishments. The first is it's a 50% penalty if it's not willful, if it's basically negligence. If it's willful, they could actually arbitrage their bonds, which is rare to never. But if they arbitrage their bonds, what that means is all the investors' earnings would be taxable, and it would cost the county a lot more money.
Yeah, and I'm okay with all that. I just don't want to present yet one more thing that says, oh, we got to get it done today.
No, I'm gonna bring it back. That's why I brought it to you
Yeah.
guys now. We're gonna bring it to them in February and then in March.
Okay.
But it does have to be paid in March.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we can't provide them amount until we're at the end of that period. We get them all the final stuff January 31st. It's gotta be calculated and get it back to them. So there is some time frames, and that's where you end up with this one. We could end up owing nothing, but I just have a concern because we're at 5.4 and we've been there about a year and a half. But if you go back at the beginning, the bonds were significantly lower, and then there's this really low dip of like 0.1, 0.13 during COVID. Well, the thing about these bonds, they're weighed heavier on the front end because of 2 things. We had more cash and debt service at the time, and then also there was more on the bond. There was more principal of the bond at the very beginning. So it does weigh it toward the front. So it's really hard to tell until you do all the backward calculations. And that's why we're hiring these folks, because we do them regularly.
So David, question, what's the trigger date? I mean, have you done the work and you're just trying to fine tune it, or?
We've got everything to them right now. We're trying to get the average yields for the rest of that service fund today to get it to it.
So once they determine it's either if we have to rebate, then the 60-day clock starts, is that?
Yes, you got 60 days after, and.
Is
and
that
I-
60 days from January 31st?
Yes.
Okay.
So right now, I've got the last report here from 2021, and they'll give us a report just like this. It'll say, basically, and they'll actually fill out the claim too if we have to pay it, but it'll actually come back with with all the calculations, say whether we do or do not owe arbitrage based on it. The last bond, the 21, we went halfway through 2 years into the 5 years to see what we looked like. Back in 2020, and we were 745,000 negative. But back in 2020, there was this big curve. Back in 15, we did the rebate, but the rates hadn't been this high. We were at that 5-year mark, we were 1.1 million negative. But these rates have significantly flipped, so it's hard to say which way it is right now. I hate to say either direction.
That should be easy to explain to everybody.
Yeah, when we did one back in 07.
And then hurry up, because we gotta pay it tomorrow.
Well, there's just penalties. We don't know the amounts.
I'm all good with the whole process, I understand.
So you've got to calculate it on the 5th year, which means you've got to have the 5th year data, and all the months, which means the month of January 31st, but then it gives you 60 days. The payment calculated on the calculation date.
Thank you.
The only way I could wrap my brain around this is, it sounds like the county can loan out money at a lower rate than it can borrow money. So there is an opportunity to lend infinite money and borrow infinite money and make arbitrage profits,
No.
if you're playing that game.
Yeah, the IRS doesn't want you to make money off of the.
Correct,
money.
correct.
That's-
So it's-
that's-
They're anti-money.
I'm like, well, what is this? But
They don't want me to come in
logically, it
and
makes,
see that.
sort of makes sense, but it's a thing.
They don't
Government
want-
wants more money.
They don't want me to come in and see that we can borrow money for 3%, it's going up like crazy, that I can invest it for 5, and
Hold it.
I go out and borrow $100 million 3 years before I need it to build a school and set it out there. That's what they don't want us to do.
Correct.
And the only reason we're in that possible situation, if you as an investor can go buy Sumner County bonds and those earnings are tax exempt.
Mhm.
So that really helps us out, but it does create this small aggravation.
Correct. So that, when you explain that to me, that's the only that's when it finally clicked. I'm like, okay, this makes sense now. So.
They don't want us taking advantage of the tax loophole. Not saying I would do anything like that, but if it was legal.
Would be a great county investment strategy.
I'm sure that's how we got to this
That's
point.
probably why they have the rule.
Somebody was making some,
Somebody
somebody's
somebody
making
saw
some
that.
bang, yeah.
When I get involved, you're doing something wrong.
But that's the end of my report unless anybody has any questions.
Appreciate it, David. Moving on to old business, we've got elected officials association. So there was obviously concern over a late addition to subcommittee we had, and needed to have an official elected officials association meeting, which looks like they held a couple of weeks ago. I was hoping the mayor would give us an update on that, so we'll have to follow up with him next meeting to make sure that they had a quorum and all that. I'm assuming they do.
So anybody on this committee, on that meeting, in that
We
committee?
did have a quorum. We
Oh,
did
okay.
meet,
Okay.
everything was official, and they took the minutes and did everything right.
Cool. I saw the agenda online, I just didn't go through it, so. Any other major updates, just voted basically on?
That's about all we did, it's just, we met and, voted on that
Okay.
and adjourned.
Okay, perfect. Moving on to new business. So there's several topics on here. The first one I just want to quickly talk through. So we're obviously in the midst of a long-term process for the county implementing Chronos software. And we are finding a lot of pushback from different departments. And there seems to be a lot of folks still purchasing their own timekeeping software. So we've got an email from the city county clerk for a budget transfer. She since pulled back that request, but has still spent a couple $1,000s, I believe, on their own software, which would duplicate the Chronos that currently exists. So if you look back at some of the state statutes, there are some statutes around waste and duplicate things, and this was one that I think we needed to discuss here because a lot of David's timeline for implementing Chronos is a very I would say it's a conservative timeline in my opinion, but it does require folks to get on board. And buying annual payroll software doesn't feel like people are getting on board. And I think there's probably more than just this one instance, but this is the one instance I wanted to call out. No, this is the only one, sorry. So,
So David, let me ask you, when was this department scheduled to be implemented on Cronus?
They contacted us back in August, we contacted them in September, so they were the next one in the loop. So the question, when she sent it to me, my question first, I asked her for the statutory authority. She provided me the statute for her automation tax, which it would fit under that, but my broader question was, if it's required by the 2012 Act, is it still authorized to be purchased basically as a duplicate? I think that's the broader question here.
I wonder if we just need to wait until she's here. I talked to her today, and she said that she's using this, it's not just for timesheets and vacation and sick leave, but it allows her to fill out and sign documents with her employees, post training videos and documents, communicate with staff instead of multiple group texts, allow supervisors to manage their employees remotely, gives us the ability to create different schedules for our employees because they work different shifts. She said it's more than just timekeeping. So I wonder if it's just good to hear. I don't know. I'm not involved in the debate about whether
She didn't provide me any of that data. She's just basically said she can,
yeah.
she's
So-
elected, she can do what she wants.
Can we take a trip through memory lane, because I wasn't here? Were you the only one here in 2012, or were you here, Mr. Ledford?
I was here in
Not on the commission. I was here.
Yeah, I was here on her. I've read some documents, not a lot, but early on, can you talk to us about, how did y'all decide on Kronos?
There was basically the 1981 Act for the schools, and the commission and the schools were, I guess the best word is at odds. So the discussion was to do a compromise act, which was a consolidation, which was the 2012 Act. At the time, the school board and the financial management got together, and I think they had Dr. Phillips, me, Anthony Holt, and several of us to work on basically modifying the 81 Act to something that could be workable for the schools. The actual act was brought back, and it was like a committee that had school board members, and this is all from memory, so we might pull some of the records, so I can be slightly off a little bit, but it was financial management, county commissioners, and the school board. They all voted to go ahead and send the 12 Act on forward to the county commission. It got approved. After the 12 Act, it created the subcommittee that was supposed to, through the financial management committee, implement the act. The number one thing proposed to the subcommittee and the county commission was to hire a consultant group, which was called Plant Moran, which it was one of the, I think it's like the 7th largest firm in the nation at the time. I'm not sure now what their size is. They came back and we did a bid, and it had, I'm wanting to think maybe 1,800 specs. It had a lot of specs. Us and the school board members were, not the school board, but the school staff wrote the specs, sent it out to Plant Moran. They came back with different recommendations. It was between Munis, and I think the other one was J.D. Edwards, and Kronos was an add-in to either one of those. The subcommittee met, and unfortunately at the time they didn't keep the minutes well because those minutes are hard to locate. Came back and recommended to the financial management committee. The financial management committee presented it, and it went to the next budget, and Kronos was chosen countywide at that point. So the Kronos and Munis was brought in for, I guess, the whole system at that point.
So I was chair of financial management 2014-15, and I can tell you, like, one of the biggest issues is that David was staffed with implementing Tyler Munis without an IT department, without the servers, without the staffing that he needed. And so, because I mean, I can say, like, on the school side, I was an assistant principal when all this was going on, but the school side was a comprehensive years-long implementation to get to where we are with it, and that was with a much larger team than David had. So I think that was part, but I can say in 14-15 we hit a lot of issues with just the fact that there weren't enough human hours to get the work done to do the implementation.
Basically, instead of creating an IT department, we added 2 IT staff to my department,
Yeah.
and a part-time one, so we tried to implement the whole system, including bringing on the software. the amount of time taken, we moved along, but we got the Munis financials implemented, which took, I think, about 2 years. Started moving over sections and started writing some of the stuff for Chronos. That was just for the financial section, and started working on the payroll. Well, at the time, I think the schools decided it probably wasn't the best fit for the consolidation, so they wanted a separation. That was about 2019. So they came back, rewrote the act in 2019. Sometime around there, we created as a county and IT department, which actually helped speed us back up. And then from 2019 forward, we moved forward. We picked up like the payroll section and several sections in the Chronos since 19. Same issue, it's just like what's on the commission floor tonight, there's a lack of staffing to get all the work done. Just like we were talking, there's probably gonna be a lot of late hours through the end of January right now, but there's a lack of staffing. Since we have IT, it was helpful. Initially, IT was brought in. They had 2 project managers when they came in, because we took the 2 hours, it was gonna do the project management, and it did not work out, so we brought all that back in-house. And since they're doing the servers and those portions, we've started doing as finance started doing the Chronos and the Munis and bringing the rest of those modules.
I think it's important to know too, prior to this move, as slow as it's been, we were running payroll on spreadsheets. I know when Amanda Brown first came from TVA to Sumner County Schools, it would take her 22 minutes to run a report that she could run in 35 seconds when she was at TVA.
So where are you at schools now? What is the situation at schools now?
We're fully integrated with Tyler. We're working on time and attendance now so we can automate all of our payroll. We do our payroll in there, but where we can do so we don't do paper time sheets and things like that. Like all of our payroll is run through Tyler, Tyler Munis, but we haven't gone, it's a beast when you have 4,500 employees to do the time and attendance, but that's what our push is now.
So Tyler, that's a automated system? Or
Tyler Munis is the back end of the
Financial and payroll.
We
See,
do-
Tyler, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Tyler do your budget, like, not the budget doc we do, but it does your budget, your financials, and your payroll. Chronos, or even their Tyler portion they got, really it just takes time. It
You
accumulates
still have to
employees' time and it
manually
pushes it through.
tell it?
On time, yes. We do all of our budget and everything like that on Tyler Munis.
So it doesn't have the digital input for time for the employees?
Right.
You're still doing
Right.
that?
That's what we're working on.
We're about half-
It's gotten a lot better. Honestly, it's probably one of those things where the delay is better because the product is so much better than it was. Because before we were looking at having to run time clocks into every known space imaginable with a hardwired system, where now it's accurate.
Yeah, it's easier now.
A couple of things that made ours very difficult is I believe, is it 14 or 16 personnel policies? Is part of it. We have 32 departments, and then there's the issue where we have employees with no holdback, which has created another issue of automating the system. So you've really got 2 large roadblocks: is the holdback, and the personnel policies aren't an issue, other than we just have to program them all separate, like completely separate entities.
Yeah,
So-
there's a lot of parameters available.
So for instance, like the school, they've got one large personnel policy, no matter how complex it is. We do one, and then we come back and redo it again for a completely different entity. So we've done one for sheriff now, EMS, which is our 2 biggest, and the county general one, which has some variations, but 3 of them's been done so far. So we've done 3 full-blown automations as far as that goes. We're just on the last leg of hooking it back into Munis.
What is your holdback at the school?
On the
Payroll?
On the payroll, it just, when you're running 4,500 employees in 55, 56 different locations, it's, anything involving pay, you want to make sure everything is correct and moves right. And just, it's like everything else. We've implemented all the other stages of Tyler. Tyler Munis works great. It's a great budgeting software, but it is complex, and the training curve is steep on your employees, and the implementation to get it right is steep. And so it's taken years to get to where we are now.
So with the holdback, when I'm asking you, it's like you have 2, I assume you're on a 2-week pay cycle, or you're on one
We
month?
pay monthly.
Monthly.
Mhm.
When you pay monthly, do you pay up to date? So it's the month of January. When do I get my pay?
So it depends on what type of, we have different types of employees. So basically, I won't go into all the days, but if you're a 12-month employee, you're paid concurrently
Oh,
January,
because of the
January.
summer and
Right.
stuff,
If
right,
you're,
yeah.
I mean, like I can tell you, like for years, like for instance, my parents, for decades, in Sumner County, if you taught 10 months, you got 10 paychecks. And, you know, my dad used to say it took Sumner County 40 years to figure out you could divide by 12. But because we give 12 checks, because it helps our employees in the
Yes.
summers, there's a lag on that. So it's, you know, the overwhelming majority of our employees, there's a lag. It's only probably 150, 100, you know.
Because
Well,
of
it's
the
more than
average,
12 months,
yeah.
but yeah.
So who is the timekeeper in schools, at each school? The executive secretary or?
It depends. So like, you know, there's different types of staffing. Like, usually the people turn in the time sheet to either bookkeeper or secretary, and then the principal verifies it. That's the reason we want to go to this system, is like we move mounds of paper.
Mhm.
Because, you know, for instance, I'll just give you an example. Like, there are timesheets that are signed by the building level principal, someone in the instruction department, or maybe sometimes 2 or 3 people in the instruction department, and me. So every timesheet will have 3 to 5 signatures on it, verifying the hours.
I can tell you why the county wanted to move to Chronos and automation. Just like the schools were a service provider, the biggest risk for a service provider is a wage and hour issue. So if we can get these set up, wage and hour compliant, programmed and set up, it
Mhm.
decreases that liability or possibility significantly. Because right now, just like them, there's hundreds of pieces of paper with humans shuffling it, trying to do their best job, so it creates an error rate. You program the system and test it for a while, you can get the error rate pretty close to 0. That's why we wanted it, and that's the reason the commission's seen a lot of the cost, and it's probably close
And
to what they want.
the vulnerability that we used to have before we had an IT department that's much better now on the county side, we always had on the school side, is just the protected servers, because with the, I mean, you would be astonished at the number of phishing and whaling schemes that happen. And they are good.
Mhm.
They are really good now.
So can I ask 2 questions? One, to go back to the whole holdback question for you, Dr. Lankford.
Mhm.
So am I understanding that you do not do a pay in advance at all at the school? It's all retrospective?
Right. Well, I mean, it's either current, if you're 12 months, you
Current
get paid
or
current, or
retro.
holdback.
I got you.
Now, I mean, that creates, the problem that it creates for us, and it's maybe more details than you want, is because of that holdback, we have sometimes people that start jobs and they don't get a check until a month and a half later because of the
Mhm.
holdback.
Right.
That's a huge detriment in,
Mhm.
you know, in hiring now. And it's where you will see increasingly what's starting to happen. This is a crazy process, but all your fast food restaurants and a lot of your retail places are using a third-party vendor that pay people every day.
Wow.
And so they run it like Venmo. So if you want your money tonight, after you work your shift,
Just hit the button.
you pay $4, like a Venmo transaction. If you want it tomorrow, they'll direct deposit it into your account for
It's
free.
like a money loan place, but on
It-
your phone.
It's not quite money, because it is your money, you earned it,
Right.
but if you wait till tomorrow, you can get it for free. If you want it right now, you gotta pay $4.
Big process.
Evidently, there are enough people that take the $4 that they're making a killing.
Oh, I
off
can
of it.
imagine.
And my second question is, let's get back to where we started, if you don't mind, on buying this payroll keeping software that, is it $1,900, $2,000 or so? I mean, I hear you about the online training, and that may be a valuable part of that. But in terms of having, you know, a disparate timekeeping system when we're trying to go to Chronos, I would not recommend that. That does not provide good controls for us. So if there's value somewhere in what she purchased, let's talk about that. But in terms of going to do a separate payroll, I don't know that I would want to move forward with that. I mean, given the efforts that David is going through in terms of getting the Chronos implemented. But if there's value somewhere else other than, I'd be open to listening to what that is. But
Well, she, you know, she's not here tonight, and I'm sure David didn't know she was not gonna be here or out of town, and I'm sure she, probably when she made her arrangements, I don't know, probably didn't know she was gonna be on the agenda, but I'm like you, I would like to hear more about what she has to say about it and the
Yeah.
things that, so she can make her point. I think it'd be add value to this committee.
I'll make a motion to.
So I just have
Oh,
one more
sorry.
request. I'd like to know more about what we paid for Kronos. I know I saw some details, it was $92,000, I asked you about it the other day, furniture and consultant early on in 2013.
That was to put furniture for like the cubicles and all
And,
that there.
and then it was consultant, and I assume maybe it was the consultant firm. I'd like to know, Kronos, I assume we're paying a subscription fee every year?
Yeah, we do.
Even though we haven't used it hardly?
So that's what we came back in 19, we went to the cloud. And at the time, we had Dennis Clary was our IT director, and we put him as far as buying the license and
Mhm.
negotiating that. My understanding was you get discounts for larger purchases, larger number of seats. So my understanding is right now he's bought all the seats based on the discounts, and we've been sitting on them a while. So if we're not gonna get moving, we need to determine, are the cost of each seat gonna go up more than the savings we have by holding these? We do need to look at that, and that was something that I think I actually mentioned that to you the other day, the discounts.
So what are we looking at in cost? I mean, there was an upfront, I assume, and now there's an annual.
I can't remember, I'll have to go look. But we knew the first year you weren't gonna get any benefits because you had to buy it the first year and pay the support, and we argued that it set up training. But
I'd just like to understand the whole
As far as
cost next
19,
time we
moved
meet.
in, 19, we moved into the cloud. So a lot of those times were spent in configuration, and they said you needed all the seats for configuration. But the question being is, if we're not gonna start moving forward, we probably do need to start looking at those number of seats.
If
because
we
the
can't
majority of
move
people are in there.
forward, we have to take it back to commission to get the 12 ratified? I mean,
The
I
thing
didn't-
is-
is that an option?
No, because the private act says, it basically defines your timekeeping system, says it's exclusive and to be used by all departments, and it says that the timesheets are to be prepared. So to comply with the 12 Act, everybody would have to be in there, and it has to be automated. And it's really up to the commission, the committee, what they do, but from a technical standpoint, would be best to automate it and run it all through Kronos, as far as wage and hour keeping, time, and overall cost. And just like I told somebody the other day, it's gonna take us a while to get this ramped up. Whoever, when we finally get it done, I'll actually be retired and the next person's getting the benefit. So what I'm telling you right now doesn't benefit me, it's benefiting the next person. But some point from an error, somebody's gonna complain, and you're gonna have a wage and hour audit, and even if you're successful, it's gonna cost you a lot of money. If you have this automated system, it's like when we get done doing this system, my recommendation is we hire somebody to do an internal review on the whole system, independent, because the actual private act says it'll be wage and hour compliant. I was the one who wrote that section, because your number one risk as a service provider is losing money in wage and hour.
Mhm.
We don't want to do that. You don't want to do that as a county. But I mean, it's really up to you guys what you do with, technically speaking, Kronos would be your best move in the long run.
So I think you were gonna make a motion to move that to old business, is that right?
Yeah, right. I'm gonna refer it or move it to old business. I'll make that motion.
So move it to next month?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Any second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it is our job to look at possibilities of waste and unnecessary unavoidable costs. And we probably can't understand that unless we hear exactly what it is.
Yeah, why they wanted it?
I think he says, well, just for not, no action to roll on to other business anyway, so before you get it on there. And the next one's a Kronos demonstration, and we have Miss Annette here, she's the payroll manager, and she's here to do a short demonstration.
So this is just a very simple one, but I'm happy to answer questions or show you anything else. This is our UAT version, so this is just our practice version. Oh.
I think you have
It
to.
was. Did it time out?
Yeah, may time
Oh,
out.
well, sorry about that.
It's on. I think there's,
Time out on
she did you do the week present?
IT set it up for me, they said you just have to go here.
it. It's up on the screen, if you
Yeah, it
want to,
was.
that's what I've come.
I know it.
It's
So they did that.
Our peninsula was a skating rink until.
They call Robert.
It's amazing.
If you have any ideas. He was working just a minute ago.
Yeah, I have stuff up there.
Pure ice. We had several.
You were right on the snow when it rained.
Yeah,
Friday, I was
normally
like,
you have
oh,
to do
for
that,
Thursday,
and
I was
then
like,
like
this-
have a code.
because we were in Minnesota and that happened, and it didn't thaw.
That happened. Oh, yeah. It took me close 2 days because of
That's weird, he sent me an email. Or a text.
Wonder if we could,
Sean Roberts.
I gave you a couple shout outs on videos, thank you.
All right, thank you.
There is Robert.
Colin, I pulled out.
you want me to call him?
Yeah, he sent me a text the other day about a cyber attack. I can't find his name.
I
He said, I just live right there. Just pulled out my
Here,
driver's
It's Robert.
Hey Robert, this is Jessica. We're down in the financial management meeting and I don't know if the big screen timed out or what, but what do we need to do to get it back on?
Is the screen on at all for you, or
No.
is it just?
It's just like dead, but it's like the power button is on and the We Present light is on in the back, if that makes sense.
Were y'all using the represent, or did you have the cable plugged in?
Did
Cable.
the cable.
And now the TV, even though you're plugged in with the cable, the TV's not doing anything.
Right.
It sounds almost like maybe the screen changed channels or something possibly.
Oh yeah, that may be what happened. It has to be on like HDMI something, don't it? It's gotta be on HDMI
see it?
4.
Time it's black, we can't
It's
see.
still just
It's
black. The screen is black.
You're lucky, I'm in the building, so.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
he
you.
has something on budget.
Oh, he's here, so that's good.
Well, we just voted not to have the January. So hopefully that helps the next.
Should get us through snow season.
Why are you calling
Then
me?
let's set up and work.
Who called you?
Sumner County Schools.
School's out tomorrow.
Thank you.
It is closed tomorrow.
My daughter's losing her mind.
We got close. We were real close to going back, but.
Yeah, they
Go
closed.
back to the schools.
Yeah.
I think there's two camps on this, and the moms are like,
There's no doubt.
Jimmy, just go through.
They're not gonna like your videos if you have to go back to school.
Jimmy, go ahead through item
We'll stop doing videos for that. Let's be.
Can I make a motion that we go to the next item while we wait for technical support?
yeah, that's what David's bringing up.
I'll mention this, but let's see what we got. Further discussion of employee holdback period, Chronos time. You got the next one's further discussion of the holdback period. And where we're at on the holdback period right now is the Sheriff's Department, EMS, Highway, Health Department, and DCC have a holdback period. The remaining county employees do not. That's the majority of your county employees. And out of that first group, Sheriff and EMS is the vast majority they're already on Chronos. So it was the same, that was the item that was requested to be back on here by, I think, Ms. Boyd.
And if I can, so I've located an article from 2012. And it was interesting because we could have written this article today on this holdback period. And Mr. Long, you apparently were in the room, but all the other folks are not in the room now. And you discussed it, and this article talks about the options you came up with.
Right.
At that time, you suggested a transition period take place over a period of approximately 1 year to allow the accrual of vacation days, which could be used to offset the week's pay withholding.
That was one of the discussions, but they were totally against that kind of.
Mr. Holt suggested, according to this article, that another option would be to withhold 1 day's pay per month over a period of 5 months during the transition period. And then, Mr. Long, you pointed out that the school system would be similarly affected, but apparently maybe that's been corrected now. And then the conclusion of it all was, Mr. Long, you were going to go away and come back with an answer.
And they basically, nobody supported this, so it
So here we are. I just wanted to bring up, this article is very interesting from 2012. We could write it today.
I bet if you go back to 1992, you can find another one.
I could find another one.
It's probably been going on 50 years to be.
So I'm not in favor of continuing to kick the can.
Well, David, you had some pretty meaningful proposals on the table 30 days ago. What, has anything changed on those? I mean,
No, I think the most affordable, and if you look at the group that actually does not have the holdback, they did not receive the ARPA or any of these other benefits, such as the additional vacation or stuff that happened recently, and employee morale, you know how it is. My thought process is if you are, when you go onto the Chronos, to actually basically give them 1 week's worth of pay and move the offset that way, other than your exempt department heads. And then your exempt department heads, if you did it in June, you pay them for what's left during the rest of the fiscal year, and then just divide their payroll by the number of payrolls next year, and then settle up with them when they leave. And I say exempt department heads, they include like me and Mr. Schittler, that way we wouldn't get any benefit out of it, but your general hourly employees would, which right now this is the group that didn't get all the extra raises through the ARPA or any of that stuff.
did we sign a value to that? It was like 230,000?
Yes, I've got it right here, let me pull it up. It covers about, counting the exempt department heads, we'll take those out, so probably about 200 employees. And the cost, if we take out the exempt department heads for everyone, if it was done at one time, would be $239,086. If before that, though, you had a requirement for all new employees to have a holdback, and with their turnover and stuff, that would actually lower that number further, is a thought process.
So where does that stand today? Where is it at?
It's in the subcommittee.
So can we, when you say it's there, can we, I would like to make a motion regarding the new employees. I mean, that's one piece, if in 2012 they had if they had taken the bite out of the new employees that were not at the table to know any different, we'd be further along with this. I'm willing to, tonight, if we can, take a bite out of the new employees, take that piece off our table, if we can do that.
We will need enough time to set up some kind of tracking process. Because right now we're doing W-2s and we're on the new systems, there's several issues with it, to say the least. Nothing material, but just time consuming.
My article from 2024 is not gonna say Mr. Long went away to do W-2s and
No,
never
what
came
I
back.
what I'd say, if you're gonna do it, let's put a date in, because we originally mentioned that all new employees, for instance, hired after May 1st, anybody paid that's a new employee after May 1st, hired after May 1st, is told that they have a week holdback, no matter what department they're in. Other than, that they have to have at least, a week's holdback, or 4 days, or whatever it is.
That last part, I didn't understand what you were
I
saying.
think the sheriff's only got a 4-day holdback right now. We don't want to affect them because it's enough for us to do. How far are they up back? 4 days?
So we got 200 employees that are impacted.
Yeah,
The
like-
new, the older employees, but the new ones effective May 1,
Will be
you'll be
everybody.
doing a holdback. Is that,
On the brand new
is that
ones,
what
yeah.
your recommendation is? Okay.
So what if I'm in the sheriff's office? Right now, I got a 4-day holdback, and I'm a new employee coming in.
We
You're
would
gonna give
leave
me
them
5?
alone. We would leave them as they are.
Leave them at 4 days.
I would just say any department that currently does not have a holdback period has to have a minimum of a 1 week holdback period.
So what do we do? I mean, at some point, it seems like, let's say we're 20 years down the road.
Mhm.
It seems like whoever's sitting in your seat would like to have everybody on 5 days and instead of having to think about 4, these are 4 and these are 5.
Two things I would do. I would do the May 1 for the employees to get that number down. And then number 2, I think the best thing to do would be for the exempt employees to, pay them out through the rest of June and divide them by 26 next year. That'd be like me and Mr. Siller and Josh Sudduth and those folks. The third one is what I think is when you go on to the Chronos system, that you ask budget to fund that 5-day holdback for the existing employees, almost like a small booth where they can get an ARPA and all these additional vacation days, is kind of helping morale, and ask them to fund that, and it'll set you a holdback. It'll allow us to move forward with those. But you probably do it as they go, because the big thing it'll do is help you automate the Chronos system. Because right now we can't automate it with that holdback, because it's got all these estimates in it.
I'd certainly be in favor of the May 1, getting that started.
Mhm.
The 239 that we're talking about, would that need to go through budget committee or, okay.
But we're just gonna throw it in pieces.
But the 239 would be for every single employee as of that day,
But that
other
would-
than the exempt department heads.
Yeah, but that would, as you implement Kronos, that would allow you to move forward on all employees at the same time. If you got everybody kind of,
Yes.
the whole that period kind of straightened out.
We do the May for the new ones, do the department heads, and then say in June, sometime in June, do that week, ask budget for the ones currently on Kronos to go ahead and do the week, it'll get everybody who's currently there, and we can start automating it to directly phone in. And then when a department's getting ready to come on, send it on to budget commission, say, hey, this is the cost for that department's holdback.
How does that work with elected officials in terms of them setting, each one has their own employee handbook,
I think
holdbacks, things like
really
that?
their pay cycle and stuff is not addressed in those statutes from
Okay.
employee handbooks. Kind of comes more into I guess more of an accounting, payroll matter.
2 questions. Is that 239 including the
Benefits.
department heads or not?
Not the department heads. Department heads were pulled out for a couple of reasons. One is I'm saying they're exempt, and we can, if we do it in June, pay them the rest of their year, divide them by 26. They're not going to see a significant sudden on payroll. And then when we settle up with them, there's not that many. The other one is I'm not going to recommend that because it would actually give me a week's worth of pay, and I'm not going to recommend anything to give myself money. With the department heads, it was about 200 and almost 270,000.
Okay.
So it's
Now,
a
same
$30,000
question.
cut.
You said sheriff's on 4-day, is that because they're working 10 hours a day?
No, it's because of when their pay cycle ends, their weekends versus when the payroll is. The payroll is, it's supposed to be Friday, but you receive it Thursday morning, or late Thursday. And their pay cycle ends, what day?
Through Sunday.
On Sunday, so that gives them 4 days there, do that Thursday.
Everybody has a different cycle.
Now, one of the things we've got with automating the sheriff's department right now, before we can automate them, they are gonna have to be able to sign off. Those are gonna have to have their sergeants and lieutenants and everybody be able to sign off on time sheets versus dropping back in Excel and doing some kind of reconciliation. Because there's the questions why we hadn't automated them. There's two issues. One, instead of pulling it back in Excel and the payroll person at the sheriff's doing that, they're gonna have to have people to sign off on each individual, because if they sign off when we do an import, what gets imported is what everybody gets paid. So if they're not physically looking, they're gonna have to have like their lieutenant to come by and look at it and sign off. The other one is they have on-the-job injury, and on-the-job injury is in lieu of workers' comp. It pays you 66.66% tax, tax-free of your salary. Well, the sheriff's department makes up the other 33% through their budget. So that's another issue we've got. It's not an actual paid time.
So can we go back and talk about, like, what you're saying is they have to sign off before their payroll goes out? Some systems I've audited, I see it after the fact. Like, the payroll goes, let's say Toby's goes, and then he has to sign off at the end of the month that this is
Here's the
correct.
issue. You got people miss punches, so Toby has a guy that forgets to log in and out, so he don't has a punch, he'll have to put it in. Somebody forgets to enter vacation, he's off Friday, but he doesn't enter any sick time, and then nobody signs off of it when we run it on through, he's only gonna get paid for 9 days. So that's why you need somebody signing off. They're gonna come in and say, hey, my guy's supposed to work 80 hours, so he was sick Friday, so we need to enter in sick time. Or, Billy forgot to sign out on the last day, so we've got to get him to manually do it because he didn't sign out on 4:30 on Friday and Monday's payroll. Well, if we leave that open, number one, those will have to be closed where there's these non-punches. But number two, people won't have a vacation time in there, sick time, comp time payouts. So there's going to have to be somebody go in there and say, hey, my particular group of individual employees I'm responsible for has done their time correct. Like in my office, I look at one employee, this employee looks at other people's, and it's the same deal. The only reason we're not uploading hours is the same issue. There's a week's worth of estimates in there.
Yeah, those estimates.
They're week estimates, and then if somebody leaves and don't have vacation time or something, they get paid payment to recover it or give it up.
Yeah, I'm certainly for the May 1, all right? But I do think that we need to come up with what is our deadline to make a decision on the 239. And if we need to, say 30 days, it needs to run through the subcommittee so we can come back with a recommendation. But
Our next subcommittee meeting's until March
March, okay,
March
so.
10th, so.
Does it have to run through the
30
subcommittee?
days. we
I
have to
don't,
pull
I
it.
mean,
I mean,
this committee has authority to do
By
that, right?
definition of a subcommittee, no.
Well, it's in the act.
For implementation.
Yeah, it's part of implementation. We're not creating a new way to do it, we're just doing it.
Just in.
What was the question?
Does it have to go through a subcommittee? I would think not, based on Robert's Rules of Order for a
So we can pull it
subcommittee.
from the subcommittee.
Subcommittee.
It can be pulled from the subcommittee if they're not acting timely or.
But it's not
all
an
over
issue of
this.
action time, it's an issue of.
Yeah, and then the committee over the subcommittee can pull it back. It's called discharging.
David, you were looking at maybe some other opportunities of how to pay for that. Did that fall through?
Like wartime.
And you were talking about maybe ARPA money, you were gonna check into
That's
that.
what Ms. Boyd was asking, if we could use part of that for the committee, and we'll check on that. If you want us to, if you want to move forward, we can check to see if the revenue replacement would qualify for that.
I think if you're, just my opinion, I think if you're looking at just paying the 239,000 and starting fresh, I think you're fine putting that as subcommittee. If we're looking at something else, as I've thought through this since was it 2 meetings ago, 3 meetings ago when we first started talking about it? I was trying to think so let's say I came to work in the county in 1997, I had a week holdback. Are we calculating that week at 1997 at the time I was hired, or are we calculating that week payback now?
Now, because we're just going to give you.
So what you're gonna do, what we would do is walk right into a wage an hour, don't you think?
We're going to give them a day.
No, I'm saying if we give it to them, I'm saying, I think you're fine pulling out we're fine pulling out a subcommittee voting on it if we're wiping out that $239,000.
Oh, you mean if we make them not get paid?
I'm
for
saying
the
if
day?
you were trying not to pay them, you'll walk into
Yeah, that's
I
not,
would
we're
follow
not, we're not
subcommittee.
discussing that.
It doesn't,
That's
it
not-
doesn't, it
The only
doesn't.
thing
Yeah.
the subcommittee is.
Let me answer the best way.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a legitimate complaint wage an hour, you just have to
Right.
have a complaint.
Right.
And then we've got to back into all the stuff, so.
I
it doesn't-
don't know
Is
how
it
you
legitimate? Probably not, but.
Everybody hates the holdback problem that we have, but I don't know that there's a good way to reconcile it and just move on.
Except for your employees that you hold for a week and a half, a month and a half sometimes.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
saying,
everybody hates
no, I'm
it.
saying the other side is like, everybody here, when you're realizing that we're gonna lose $239,000, you wish there was a way to resolve that, but there's really no good way.
So I
other than just
spoke
fix
to,
it.
I spoke to CTask, and they said that several counties have taken this approach to just pay to make it the best for everybody.
Oh, I think that, but I think that you're not really concerned about a wage and hour lawsuit or anything since we're taking it away.
If you're giving it,
If you're giving it to
them.
them, right.
Giving it to them.
If you were taking time away,
Plus, you don't want to disgruntle your employees to make complaints unnecessary. So if you disgruntle them, they'll make unvalidated complaints and you could spend a lot of money defending them. That's another reason holding them. But the thought process on hers might be, is to actually, for this committee to vote to send back something for them to look at, the subcommittee. That may be the best way.
Yeah,
to do it.
we keep bouncing things to the subcommittee, they're not gonna meet till March, you've gotta move forward with this
Mhm.
implementation, so I'm not there on that. And I do wanna ask a question, just from an IRS perspective. If we're gonna pay $239,000, is it based on time worked? Is that W-2, or is that a 1099 payment, or is
I think it's
that
a bonus.
bonus?
It's neither one, because what you're really gonna have happen is basically we pay you for your time as you're working, okay? So we're gonna give you that week, so it's basically we're gonna move you back that 1 week. So at the end of the year, when we move you back, there'll be one more week accrued in your financials. So on the IRS, it's paid based on the actual checks we're writing you. So you're gonna get those checks, so when you leave.
Kinda like a ghost check, I mean, you're not, okay, I
Right.
got you.
So, but it's gonna
We're
affect
gonna
your
get-
budget, but so at the very end, when you quit, retire, or whatever, you're gonna have one more week's worth of time to take this vacation or to get paid out of it. So it's gonna be at the end of your time.
We're not getting 240,000 of cash out of our pocket. As soon as this happens, we're accruing a $240,000 expected liability.
And pay over
That will
cash.
get paid out as people retire.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Well, we're basically getting one when you quit or retire.
But it's just deferring it down, so it's earned money.
But the sooner you can start having the new employees to do a holdback, the quicker it'll be. But I'm saying give them May for time for everybody to consider, and we're in January, so if you send it back to the subcommittee in March, it'd be back here in April for the holdback, for a full vote.
I don't think it's the subcommittee that we need to concentrate on, it's budget.
Well, I mean, just for the holdback, not for the.
For the new
Can we just
employee.
move it out of this committee to the budget committee, approve it, or move it, or put it up for
Yeah.
vote here and move it
We
to
can
the
pull it
sub-
out if you want. I think we need a motion to pull it out of the subcommittee.
I'll make that motion, I just think we gotta pull it, we gotta move it forward.
Yeah,
So I'll make that motion.
Is it already down in subcommittee?
I don't know, did y'all even discuss the new
We
employees?
Because the reason I
I
ask
don't
is
think
there's
they
a
did.
vote requirement.
We did
if it
not
is.
discuss the new employees, the only thing discussed was the holdback, And Mr. Isabel wanted to bring it to the Elected Officials Association to discuss it. Was it discussed at the Officials Association?
No.
So it's not been discussed.
No, it wasn't discussed.
So that one, yes, but this first one, I don't think it's been down to the committee, so the most prudent would probably be sent it back down to the subcommittee and give them, 30 days to discuss their options.
And when you say the first part, I just want to be clear what you're,
The all new employees starting May 1st must have a holdback. If you hire a new employee, you tell them you're gonna have a week holdback, so like you're gonna do. So when I hire you, say, hey, you do realize like every other employee, you get a week holdback before you get your first
We
pay.
could have a special subcommittee meeting, right?
You can have
In a week or two? Okay.
Because me and Toby need to have a notice meeting where me and him just meet to talk about purchasing, because we're members of the same committee too. So we can have a meeting.
So the subcommittee would be going, basically talking about this, the two options, the two recommendations. One, the May start, the trigger of May, everybody being on holdback. And secondly, talking about the 239 that we're talking about here as a financial management. And then they'll come back to this committee and say, that's our recommendation. We can take it or not. If we don't take it, we'll make our own, and we'll move forward with our recommendation to move it to the budget committee. Is that one way or the other? I mean, if we choose not to move forward with it. Okay.
The May 1 has no financial impact, it just has to hold back on.
So David, does that give you time, assuming you get the 2 week, if you do a special call subcommittee in 2 weeks? I mean, I think that's fine. I mean, if you're talking about March, I'd say no, because that's just too long.
That's fish call for one item.
To get to Terry's point, we're just kicking the can down the road here.
yeah, I don't want my name brought up in a decade.
And what?
What if,
Newspapers are almost gone. You'll be fine.
The internet's forever.
if we
Yeah.
can't get a resolution at that meeting, we're still gonna have our financial meeting next month, so we can,
If you get the subcommittee, the special call in 2 weeks, then at our normal meeting, we get the readout.
Correct.
And then we can make a decision as a committee, move forward or do whatever.
Yeah.
Does that right?
correct. Or if we can't get anything done in the subcommittee meeting, we can just pull it back at that point.
I'm looking at the law director.
I'm saying be date specific on the subcommittee so that you don't have a pullback problem, because if you don't get a decision, you can at least, through a 2/3, take it back up, take it away from them and make your decision and move on from that meeting and pass it on to budget.
I'd say 2 weeks. That,
Well, I'm thinking 2 weeks from today.
yeah, Bob.
You could meet February 1st, that's a Thursday, which you work.
You, Bob, you all right?
Do we need to make a motion?
Hmm?
Do we need to make a motion? Okay, he made a motion. I seconded.
No, but you, they give you a deadline and once you meet by a certain day.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I have to double check my work schedule, but it seems fine.
That first on Thursday, like 5:30.
What value does it have to go through this elected officials process? If we got a subcommittee, what do we need to have that group involved?
It's in the private act.
Probably, okay.
Yeah, I think generally we wanted to understand what the challenges would be from the department heads
I got you.
implementing this, with our recommendation being you have to be on Chronos to get the holdback, and there was some pieces there that we needed to think
So that could be done concurrently though, right? Subcommittee and then the officers association, you could be educating them on what we're doing, or are you talking about two separate steps
Well,
here?
they've appointed, if they've appointed somebody to the subcommittee, then the Elected Officials Association, it's just a subcommittee. So it's just a subcommittee.
It's a separate entity that we're not involved with.
Right, so, but they, I guess it's cart before the horse though, right? I mean, you're saying that the elected officials association has a play in this based on the private act, but we're saying.
A representation play.
But I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, have you guys appointed somebody to that committee?
Yes,
Okay, so you got that person, okay.
Yes.
That's all I wanted to know.
yes.
and it will be on her to be ready for this meeting.
I got you, okay, I'm done.
For that.
I was gonna make
I think
sure.
so.
So did they need to set a deadline? So Eric, did you say they need to set a deadline to have a meeting in February?
This committee needs to set a deadline for the subcommittee to get something gelled together and to you as a recommendation before your next meeting to keep this timeline working.
Okay, so if we meet February 1st, we could have,
March 1 is the deadline, because you won't be again to March in this committee. They give them March 1 deadline to have back a recommendation, so.
And that needs to be pointed out.
okay.
And then, for communication's sake, it would be handy if the minutes from all of these subcommittees and, I guess the association minutes for appointing their people and the minutes. If we could see all the minutes that flow into where we're at, so that we could understand the processes when that comes back to us.
We could put that on the agenda next month as an item. We've asked the association for their minutes and then the subcommittee got minutes. Yeah, we do,
Just for clarity's sake, I think what needs to happen is a motion, a seconded motion, telling that this, y'all are voting to have the subcommittee discuss this topic with a response no later than 3/1/2024.
I'll make the motion. Or is that the, what y'all got?
Yeah.
We're good, all right.
We have a second too, so.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Go back to item B.
All right. Looks like the screen's working.
Okay.
Sorry for cutting you there.
Okay, so this is what an employee does. Oops.
You wait, it's not gonna be long.
Yeah.
We log in.
Between this and the commission.
Majority of us have a punch button, which is punch. Depending on your policy or your schedule, you'll know when your allotment is to punch. So from here, I can.
I have a question. So is this on your desktop at your desk, or is this on your
Yes,
phone?
it can be both.
So it could be both? Okay, thank you.
I can look at my time card.
And can I ask you a sheriff's department question?
Sure.
Because, and I won't say who, but I spoke to one of them. They want to know how this would work if they're an SRO, they leave their house and they're on their way to their school location, and they decide to pull someone over for speeding on the way there. How will they log in? Because they can only log in, my
They don't
understanding.
log in.
They punch in, they said
They
they, something about 5 miles from the school they were trying to say to me.
They don't punch. They're on a paid from schedule because we were told we couldn't force them to log in because they might not have internet access.
Yeah, because of this access issue. So the understanding is their schedule's already in the system, so they're supposed to start and end on their schedule. If they're not, then they get with their supervisor and it's changed every time they work.
Well, they have a chance to put in if they work extra time.
Right.
They
So
log that.
this employee was concerned, so that's something to talk about later on down the road.
So that may
What
be
was
an
their
issue.
concern?
That, I guess they have a schedule that's in there, but they might have to work on the way to their schedule.
Their
Right.
schedules,
Then
if
they
Or
they
would
have an
actually,
emergency call and have to respond.
they're supposed to change it if they do that. Yeah, they're supposed to.
Well, they
Okay.
have an option to put in
So-
extra time. So like, here, I'll show. Well, I mean, I won't pull one of them up.
No, I think
But if you go-
I took you off track.
No,
They
you're
just
fine.
asked me.
The SROs and the deputies who are paid from schedules on their, my time off,
They're dispatched.
if you go to the advanced options for a normal person, you only get to choose to take time off. For them, they can add time. So they have a
Understand.
chance to put like the date, and apply. And
So
then
I had to
here,
go
they
to
would be able
court,
to
on Friday, I
choose
had to go to court for 3
deputy
hours.
extra time,
Got
and they
it.
put their hours, the date, and then they choose if it was, staffing shortage or all the extras that they have.
I like
And then
it.
that
Okay.
goes to their supervisor who approves it.
Okay, I understand. That's
So-
clean.
So this is, I'll just pretend I'm asking for a day off, full day vacation. I can review it, submit it, I can leave, comments if I need to, done. I think I got sidetracked when I can look at my time card. Current, you can see my punch, oh, I must have put some fake punches in. But as you can see, me as the employee, I cannot do anything to my times. I don't have the option to make any changes or anything. So
You can
that's
only
where
log in and out.
we keep, them from being able to mess anything with their time card.
Happens if you click approve.
So that's just kind of basic of what the employee does. So then their manager,
You can approve it.
I have to go in and approve what they just approve their own time.
If they do it by error and there's a mistake, they can do it. If it's fine, then they can approve it.
So that
Ms.
approval
Browning
just
is,
doesn't say, hey, this is.
their
Gotcha.
manager. So in her little notification up here. She sees that somebody has requested time off. There's various different ways that she can go about seeing that to approve it. One is she can go to her little control center and read about it. If they made some sort of a comment as to an explanation as to why they need to take that time off or whatever, she can see it there and approve it or deny it, or she can go to her schedule. These are all of the people that she can see, that she has access to, and I don't remember what date I put as my request. My bad.
Ms. Boyd, there's a couple of different kind of employees. You've got your exempt employees that have loaded schedules and they just work by exception when they take vacation or sick time. You have the deputies which have a loaded schedule that they can add time to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got hourly employees which actually physically on their machine, based on the timestamp of the machine to the internet, they can log in and out and request time off, but they can't change their own time. They have to get a supervisor to do it.
Once they punch, they're in.
Once they're punched, they're in. If they make an error punch, they need a supervisor.
That's her to fix it.
Yeah.
And is that deputies telling you we can do things such as geo fields, that you can only log in certain places or can't log in certain places?
Do you do that?
We have in the past, not for a while. Nobody's requested. We used to have where we could only log in certain areas, but that's when the sheriff was doing logging in and out on certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the EMS, they're doing something similar. There's
They
predefined schedules that add time to it too. But we have a control because all your ambulance people are actually dispatched on the radio too. So there's two dual sets of records for them. So if there's a question if somebody actually worked and was defrauding you, then you could go to the dispatch logs.
You said that they can enter on their computer and their phone?
Or the phone, yeah. I mean, the app is just basically the website.
Is
It's the
there
same.
GPS on that phone to make sure they're where they're supposed to be when they log in?
We don't have it set up to do that.
That's what he's, the
yeah.
You can set it.
geofencing.
Originally, it was because, I don't know if it was IT or something about our.
Our
what was
building
it?
actually shows up for
Yes.
some reason and nobody can determine why is way in a different place. So
Mhm.
if we set up a geo field, it's 1,000 yards for this building, we won't let you log. This building's the only one we've
You could be
discovered.
sitting at your desk and it won't let you log because it doesn't
We
think you're at your
worked
desk.
with IT, we worked with not Verizon, but
It was before
Comcast.
me.
We cannot determine why this building, according to everything for GPS, is somewhere else. Kronos can't figure it out, IT couldn't figure it out, we've had 2 IT directors work on it. But, yeah, that's the reason we turned it off
one
for
of the
this building.
problems.
Now-
So here is, oh, sorry, what is this? Okay.
So I was just wondering, yeah, go, I'm sorry.
Oh. And so here's where she can see the request, and then she can also approve it or see details on it here. So if she approves it, and so from here, your supervisor can change if somebody has a different schedule. You can, there's lots of different ways to do whatever it is that you need to do, but she can just hand key what the schedule was changed to. And then go to their time card. And then here you'll see that as the manager, I can put in punches. I can put in time off.
It's just kind of fluid.
And our recommendation is if the manager or anybody edits a time card, that you put a comma as to why you edited it. Because everything you do gives an audit trail. So you can see that somebody has changed it, added it, whatever. We ask them to approve their time cards after certain, we do it, since we're paid current, we ask them to do it weekly, so we at least have 1 week's worth that's approved. And then after payroll runs and that pay period is done, I come through and I sign off on it, and at that point, nobody can make any changes to anything.
So right now, the departments that we have that are on Kronos, like the trustee's office, the supervisor's going in there and putting in week B as, assuming it's gonna come.
There's nothing here.
There's
We
nothing.
do it in payroll.
You do it in
units.
payroll. When they send you the you do it.
We go ahead and we load their 80 hours, and then we pull their exceptions from Kronos.
Because of lack of holdback.
Yeah.
Can you show them leave too, and that, because it actually shows the employees all.
Sorry, down here in your little, they used to be tabs, but now there's like floating words. It shows you what their balances are. Totals, this is what they're gonna get paid for. So this is what I asked them to check the totals, because this is what will come through to our data to pay them.
Can you make that a little smaller?
What do you mean?
She's being facetious.
I figured it's not.
Let me turn on the light.
It's all right.
I'm with you. It's-
So if a supervisor edits a time entry,
Mhm.
is there an exception report that's generated that somebody independent of the supervisor looks at?
I don't know what other people's best practice is, but there are lots of different reports, there's lots of different data views that can be done, yes.
So you could set your permissions up however you want with whoever needed to sign off on it to approve the hours.
But we don't know who's doing what. I mean,
Well,
those are available, but we don't really know.
Yes,
if they're
it's up to the
being-
department how they want to set up. For their policy is how everything is based on, and then it's how they run their office,
On the
basically.
elected, that would be kind of quiet limit too.
But there's lots of different data views. I can build a data view if there's a certain way that they need it, and then there's lots of different reports that you can use to just see whatever it is that you want to see. And there is a data view where it will show, I don't have any punches in UAT, but it will show where they punched, a geolocation. And there's been a few times where somebody has asked me to pull that, and somebody is not where they were supposed to be when they punched.
Yeah, we can track your location, but we don't turn the geofields on this building anymore.
Not
That's
yet.
the issue.
Is there a
Just
cost?
figure out what's going on.
He was looking at templates around this building. Just said, like, the dot was moving around when I pulled it.
So can you show me, like, I'm the supervisor, and it's time to approve everybody and send it off to payroll? What do I have to do?
Probably there's somebody.
Again, there's many different ways to do it. I know that in our office, Miss Bethany is pretty much on top of it and is checking us like daily, weekly, whatever. But you would go through their time cards. If you have a huge department like sheriff, there's a data view that I've built for them that she just has to run that data view and she'll see if somebody's missing the hours. And if they are, then she'll just go to their time card and see like, hey, what's wrong? And get with their supervisor of, hey, you need to fix this, or why is this person? But you would just check to make sure that they have their hours in, their time in, and any comments that you want them to make. Like in our office, if we work extra, we have to put a comment as to why we clocked out late or whatever.
Terry, that's the manual sheet that that the chief deputy mentioned. It's actually a data view we created that she pulled to look for people to miss punches. We could get rid of that if they had their people sign off, accuracy, like each lieutenant and sergeant that was signing off versus her having to look at it wouldn't have to be done. The other issue is the on-the-job injury would have to be handled. That's the two issues that keeps us from automating them right now, period. Because they do have a whole bag.
Just the volume, and back to what Dr. Langford said, over there they have paper. Here we have paper and Excel sheets going on at the sheriff's office, and it sounds like over here is it taking time?
The sheriff
Sheriff's
is 100% on that. It's dropped the data view from Kronos and
Okay,
changed it in
so
Kronos.
they're
There's
good.
not paper sheets being moved around. The only thing is there's a data view which is dropped into Excel for her to look at and
Yeah.
then back in with adjustments.
Oh, okay, it's a
looking,
help.
She's looking at it to find where people's left off punches or having
Well,
consistent time.
You can run some reports that integrate with Excel, so it pulls it live, it pulls the data out of the system so that people like your people like him can review things.
So it's just, the Excel's just a review, it's not a
She reviews
worksheet.
it, but I'm saying to stop that process, what you would have is like each individual employee, which they do sign off. Your sergeant or lieutenant would look and say, hey, all your time's there, they would sign off and it would move on up quickly.
Yeah.
But the only thing is, if they're not looking at it well, we pay based on what they send over to us. So if they have 9 days in
That's all
there,
you got, yeah.
they get paid for 9 days.
That's all you got,
That's
yeah.
why the lady's looking at all of them. They've got to get into that one, their process where they can do it quickly, and number two, where they understand how important it is to do these correctly, because as soon as we do it, no matter how many times you're telling with that many people, we're gonna have 30 people the next day calling after payroll center short on time. They're way over.
So you're saying they do paper and then they translate it over to?
No.
Not the
System.
sheriff's.
Sheriff does no paper, they drop out into an Excel data view the way they can look for where people hasn't logged in and out or exceptions. She's basically looking for problems by dropping.
So they're working in Excel, then they transfer it over to Chronos.
They just make those, they call and say, hey, you didn't log your time out, she'll log their time out, or put in their extra time, or whatever's missing in them. Yep, back in the front.
There's-
It's all real
there's-
time. That's what it's-
There's
Well-
4 data views that Ms. Bravo, the payroll person over there, pulls, and she pulls these
Yeah, there's no paper time sheets
to
at all.
Excel. I'm not putting my computer
But I'm
over
just,
this.
are they doing double work? That's what I'm
No.
trying to.
There's only 2 ways to do
This
it.
is all
This is
she
what you
has
gotta
to
think.
do.
Let's just imagine that you have 20 employees, okay?
I like that.
Your
That's nice.
employees are
She
hourly
then- she
employees.
just copies
If
that,
you've ever
she pastes it into
supervised
Excel
people, you know what happens. They
spreadsheet,
forget
there's
to
already
log out.
formulas, and it
They
just
forget to put in a
feeds it.
sick day,
There's
they forget to do that as well.
There's no-
If they
There's
come in and they correct it and you look at it and you correct it in Chronos, then you're fine. But instead of correcting in Chronos and it flowing on up, she's dropping everybody down into an Excel sheet and she's looking for all the problems that everybody's missed, like the sergeants or lieutenants. Because she can go up and down that Excel sheet quicker than she can go through each person in Chronos. It's easier for her to view it. If they get to the point where each person, they're signing off, but their sergeant or lieutenant's responsible to make sure it's correct, and it flows on up, then technically she wouldn't have to do that. She would be doing things such as looking for on-the-job injury that has to be entered manually because it doesn't have time.
Are these electronic signatures, or they?
They're electronic.
Okay.
You know, Chronos is all electronic. There's no manual to it. They don't have manual timesheets.
Another catch with the sheriff office is that they're on a 28-day cycle, so their overtime and stuff is only paid on a 28-day cycle.
Because they don't earn overtime to after 171 hours worked. Tour of duty.
Any other questions or?
And this system's pretty, that's one of the reasons that Plant Moran recommended, this system's pretty expandable. You can do it almost any way that you really need to. They have some, I think they told us their biggest client was at 22,000 employees or something.
It's
One of their
huge.
clients has like 22,000 employees.
And it's worldwide.
So Toby, from the highway, do you see any challenges to this?
You know, I'll have to, this is something that I would just have to dive more into, because I mean, the way we're doing it, I understand that pretty good. I would like to get, you know, I know she did a demo, but I would like to dive more into it to see how it would fit with our structure.
So do you need like a separate session once?
Well,
they're
yes, because
implementing?
that's something I mean, Jamie sets this up, and I would like to go and get with her as far as the transition period and try to get her questions and us meet as a team with them to kind of go over, because then that would be a better meeting.
When is highway scheduled for implementation?
We haven't put out a schedule, because here's where we're at right now. We're going to have to, one, get with the departments and go through the rules, because what you're gonna have to do is we're gonna put them in train. And then he's gonna have to go through train and start, you know, we're gonna put them in based on his personnel policy. If he interprets it different, then the system's gonna act differently. Or if he's doing it a little different than what his policy says. So what we need to do is put him in train and let him do, I don't know, all his employees or part of his employees as a dual and see where they come out different. That's where we're at right now. We're not 100% sure how close we are. And another thing we've ran into is over time, we've programmed this, but there's been significant changes in policies. Like the sheriff's department, since we went live, has made multiple changes, so we had to reprogram the system.
Yes, they
For
have.
remember, they went and they changed the amount of hours they get for their sick leave and vacation, their personal days. Well, Toby's changed the amount he gets for his holidays and something else. So all that's gonna have to be changed, and we're gonna have to get with him and see. That's kind of where we're at. The best thing to do is give him a small demo and put him down in train and let Jamie, influence my friend, run a few employees through and see if they react the same. And if not, figure out, one, is Toby just interpreting his policy different? We could change Chronos. Two, is he following his policy? Is he doing something slightly different than his policy and he needs to amend his policy, and then we'll program Chronos to the policy. The two things that are here, though, is Chronos needs to do two things. By number one, agree with wage and hour no matter what, because your policy can't be outside of wage and hour. And number two, it needs to follow your policy.
Can you make sure and give him at least 30 days head up, so he can have a separate training session?
I
that
think
he's
right now,
asking
what
for?
we're gonna try to focus on after this W-2, and I was talking to Annette today, is two things. Is one is magistrates and libraries, and then the other thing, and you know, there's the potential employee denied, or that we really need. And then the following by that is to start talking to the sheriff's department, see what they can do with their policies, and see if they can go through self-service to do the on-the-job injury, and see if we can start automating those departments directly on in. If we can automate the sheriff on in and get those other two departments in, then, you know, we're at the point where we need to figure out who's next. Right now, we've talked to the register, and she told us that she wasn't ready in January and didn't know when she'd be ready. Circuit, when was the last email we sent to her about it? September, October?
September, whatever, she never responded, and then things blew up.
Yeah. So she's never really responded because we were ready to
No,
move
not
forward on
since-
that one, so we're
That's
right
the
now
last meeting.
ready to move forward.
I'm meeting with her tomorrow.
But the thing is, we're running into, I guess, delays or roadblocks. Just same as Toby may be, after magistrates may be the next best one to go forward because he's got a holdback. He has no holdback issues.
Oh, that's great.
His would only be an issue to make sure the systems.
The parameters are correct, yeah.
And how your employees will clock in, because they don't use computers, most of them, I'm assuming.
No.
How are they-
I
how are they
wasn't
clocking
sure.
in right
And
now, Toby?
I think Jamie said that they don't all have cell phones.
Right, well, like our Westmoreland group has cell phones that they use. And
Okay.
then- And then we have the clock at the shop.
And then IT's got a Chronos clock. So
Okay.
So basically, it'd be the same thing, replace the Chronos clock and put on the Chronos app.
Are these county phones or are these?
These are personal, probably, it's what most people are using on them. It's the point where data's become unlimited, so there's not a lot of, I've got both because I was told a long time ago that if I did stuff on this one, it'd be subject to open records, and I don't want to deal with it. I keep two files. It don't save me anything, but it's, other than an open records request, probably. But a lot of people, as far as using this one on Chronos, I wouldn't be worried. I don't think it would subject me to open records, but sending emails to commissioners may.
So Toby, let me ask you, for your Westmoreland employees that have a phone, that use a phone, are they approving their employees' time with that personal phone?
No, let me correct that. I mean, the superintendent handles it for them, and he handles it on his phone, and he's got an iPad, which we're in the process of implementing. We're doing a new safety program to where we're having safety meetings and things of that nature, and my hope is to get it on the iPad eventually, where he can just do it on there on a bigger screen.
Does any of that information that resides on the iPad or iPhone, does it include social security numbers?
Not that I know
Chronos
of.
does not.
Chronos-
Ours is set with employee numbers. We haven't used social security numbers. in a
Social security
while.
number, a long time ago.
How are they signing the time sheets right now, Toby?
Here, just January of last year.
They come in.
They come in physically, electronically.
We were on the old payroll system.
So they can electronically sign the Chronos, and just figure out what to say with that issue too.
A long time ago.
My thing,
Especially
especially.
when they started getting all the illegals in.
Yes.
You saw all the,
They come in.
social security.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you for the display.
Just so
If
helpful.
they had that one with the cell phone, they can electronically sign it.
It made it look so easy.
Well, it
They have to
is.
come in.
Any further discussion on the Chronos timekeeping software?
I think you still got D and E. I think that was one Ms. Boyd requested, was the deadline for returning of requested items.
And I think we took care of that with the May 1st, or
Let's see.
the,
Okay.
March.
March, yeah,
March.
Whole bunch.
let's see how that goes.
And then topic E, we had a question from Commissioner Mansfield about commissioner access to Munis software and kind of where I think the private act allows for that or doesn't.
I put it on budget, but Mr. Schoaf had a concern.
Or Schoaf, sorry.
And it may be a legitimate concern, and it may be something more for our, but his concern was the commissioners and just legislators, and we're putting them in there, it's more of something a little further than that's what he's concerned. My thought process is right now is, maybe something want the law office to look at it a little closer, and even after here, you may want to move that on over to the audit committee after you get something to look at it. Because it may be more of a function, certain legislators to look at it, if they have questions about the audit or something, maybe kind of the way to approach it. It's kind of my thought process.
I agree with him. That, I guess, I'm motioning for item E to get bumped to the budget committee for their decision.
The audit committee or?
The audit committee, I'm sorry, the audit committee.
You want legal to look at it too to see if they've got concerns about access?
I didn't, I'm gonna assume that was an affirmative.
Yes, I agree.
Okay,
Do we need to vote?
yes.
I'll second that. All in
I'll make a
favor?
motion, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Do you need to restate your motion, or?
So I'd like to move the discussion of access to munis software for commissioners. I'd like the audit committee to give us, to take that issue and discuss it.
Okay. So then Todd, you were second.
Todd's,
Second, I'll second
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Passes. And then final agenda topic?
We were up to.
Okay, perfect, all right. It's Dr. Langford's favorite motion to call here.
Or should you?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
It's never failed.
Okay.
Well, she said that.
Notaries
But I don't
and
think-
notaries and adjournment, never. Chris, no one likes that one.
That's funny.
I'll be telling that, there were two things true by contract.
What?
It's gonna crack it.
I thought the audit committee should decide.
And then I saw an article.
Not us.